So please give it up for my man, my comedy icon and political guru, Mr. Dave Smith, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Wow. Well, thank you. That is very kind. I appreciate it, and thank you. How about another round of applause for Kyle? That was hilarious. He's like a less successful Robbie Bernstein, and I didn't think that was even possible. But I'm gonna have to take this kid under my wing and make something up. You know what? You got his job. That's it. Oh, Mike's dead? Oh, sorry. No. Is that no? All right, there we go. All right, well, for those of you who didn't hear, I just made a hilarious joke. Just take my word for it, I suppose. But I'm not here to be funny. I'm here to give a talk. You did not pay me my comedy rate, so I will just be saying serious things. All right, fine, fuck it, let's do it. Well, now, listen, let me start by saying what I try to say at all of these conventions when I come around to, because I get a lot of people who say nice things like Kyle just said, and I appreciate it, and people come up to me and thank me for the work that I do, but I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to every single one of you for what you guys are doing. It's incredibly important stuff, even though it's not always fun, and sometimes there's a lot of work, and sometimes there's a boring process where you have to vote on whether you want to have a vote on an amendment or something like that, and you just want to shoot yourself in the face, but you guys are doing the work that is necessary, and so thank you to each and every one of you. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it. Today, from what I heard, a few people who have been around the Colorado LP for quite a while said that this was the most people they've seen in attendance at a convention. So that's pretty incredible. And so congratulations to yourselves for that. And it's incredible to have that in this moment in time particularly. And I just want to say I am so excited for what I think the Libertarian Party can do in the very near future. We are living through an unbelievable moment in American and world history, and it is ripe for the Libertarian Party to really speak to the American people and be heard in a way like we never have before. Libertarians have been talking about so many of the problems that are quite literally destroying this nation right now, and we have answers for a lot of them. And right now, there's an incredible opportunity for the Libertarian Party. And that's not really because of anything we've done. And I'm not trying to downplay some of the really great things that the Libertarian Party has done. Look, I know that, and I want to talk about this a bit today specifically, like the factionalism and the caucus wars and all of that stuff going on in the Libertarian Party. But let me just say that despite whatever some people might think about the Mises caucus and about kind of like some of the new people coming into the party and complaining about who we want to kick out or whatever the rumors that are out there are, I have nothing but respect and reverence for the tradition of the Libertarian Party. This is the party of Harry Brown and Ron Paul, and I'm honored to be a member of this party. I think it's incredible. But that grand tradition is not why we have such a great opportunity. The reason why we have an incredible opportunity right now is because every single major institution in the United States of America has been completely discredited. That's the reality. It's not that libertarians discredited the war machine, it's that the war machine itself discredited the war machine. Even the American people can see 20 years of terror wars without one single military intervention that you could even spin into a success. So I don't know if you guys saw a few months, about 5 months ago, at the great Gene Epstein runs a debate series in New York City called the Soho Forum, and Scott Horton debated Bill Kristol. Did you guys see that? Oh, it was a glorious bloodbath. So Bill Kristol, for everybody, if you don't know, he's like kind of the #1 neocon public intellectual. He was the editor of what's the publication I'm blanking on, the Weekly Standard, and he was like one of the real architects of the Bush-Cheney foreign policy. And at one point, there was a section where there was audience questions, and one of the audience members asked Bill Kristol. He said, "Can you point to an American intervention that you believe was successful?" And Bill Kristol brought up Kosovo. Now, first off, then Scott ended up arguing. Then Scott Horton, of course, because he's Scott Horton, he just explained why Kosovo wasn't successful at all. But the bigger point there, right, is that even Bill Kristol wouldn't dare look another human being in their eyes and argue that the military interventions in Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya or Syria or Somalia or Yemen were successful. Because even that blood-soaked neocon monster can't try to convince someone that any of those were successful. So if Bill Kristol can't even argue that they were successful, what do you think some average father who sent his 2 boys over to fight in those wars, how does he feel? He knows that this was all sold on lies and was all nothing but disastrous for humanity. Of course, on top of that, we've had 2 years of this totalitarian COVID regime. And what's happened with that? Every last narrative has been completely discredited. And now they're quietly trying to roll it back while everyone focuses on Ukraine. Because, I don't know, where's Fauci been lately? Haven't seen that guy, but all of a sudden, we don't need to hear from him every day or something. But so nobody trusts them anymore. Nobody trusts the 2 parties. Nobody trusts CNN and the New York Times and the Washington Post. All of the institutions, their support has evaporated. And meanwhile, all of these things that libertarians really care about, have answers to, are real crises that the American people are facing. The wars that are still going on, the debt that has absolutely exploded, and now the big one is the destruction of our currency. And this is something that nobody can avoid, because no matter how much Facebook and Twitter and Google and all of these like social media sites, they might be able to control what people see and what people talk about every day, but you know what they can't distract you from is the fact that your price of everyday items is skyrocketing. Every American sees this, and no one has anything to say about currency because no one except libertarians even understands what currency is. So this is where we have a real opportunity. Now, on top of this, we have an opportunity like we've never had before with how much we can spread our message. Traditionally, the libertarians have been screwed because the corporate press is owned by the state. And the state has their 2 parties that they have anointed, as libertarians like to use the term, the duopoly. But the system really is designed this way, right? It's designed that you would put one party in power, you get so fed up that you go with the alternative, until you get so fed up with them, and then you go, well, we better go back to the other party. So only the 2 parties are allowed access. And you could see even back when the great Ron Paul was running as a Republican, what was the big obstacle that Ron Paul faced in his presidential campaigns? Well, he was completely blacked out by the media. And where did Ron Paul have all of his success? It was on the internet. That's where he broke fundraising records. That's where that's where there were these YouTube viral videos and stuff like that. It was always online. But the internet was really in its infancy in 2008 compared to what it is today. Back then in 2008, believe it or not, more than 1 million people would watch a CNN show. It was a different time. It's hard to explain it to some of you young people, but yes. CNN shows used to get 2, 3, sometimes even 4 million people to watch one of those garbage hours, which is mostly just like Boeing commercials, but that's over now. Now, we don't need to go through the corporate press, which nobody's listening to anyway, and no one has any trust in. We can go to these alternative platforms that have audiences 20 times bigger than some show on CNN, and that have a host who people actually trust. And we can talk to them commercial-free for hours on end and get our message out there. Now, if you look at all of that and don't see a golden opportunity for the Libertarian Party, I think we're looking at two different realities. And so I am incredibly excited to see not only that happening, but also the fact that now I've been going around to these state conventions all over the country. And let me tell you, just like people here were saying, this is the most people we've had at a convention. This is the most enthusiasm that I've ever seen at this state convention. That's the same thing they've been telling me at every single state Libertarian Party convention. It's happening all over the country. Now, you know, there's this weird dynamic in the Libertarian Party where I think it's so important for people to get out and come to events like this, in-person events. Because when you interact with libertarians on social media, you get a funhouse mirror version of what this movement really is. You know, if you listen to what's going on social media, I suppose I'm like a very controversial figure in the libertarian world. But then I come out to all of these events and I don't feel like a very controversial figure. I just feel like everyone gets along. I have been to, in the last 5 weeks, I've been to 5 of these state LP conventions. I have not had one negative interaction with one person, even in Pennsylvania. The freaking guy who ran the what's it called? The cathedral caucus, he came over to me and I was like, and he goes, "Hi, Dave." And I was like, "Hey, nice to meet you." And he goes, "I used to run the cathedral caucus." And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "Nice to meet you." And then walked away. It's easy to call someone all types of names on social media, but it's different when you're looking at them. Listen, I go on Twitter every day, and I'm like, I fucking hate libertarians. And then I come here, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they're cool. So try to keep that in mind. A lot of the wars and a lot of this stuff is very exaggerated online, and it's not the same thing when it's in person. But I will say that I think that there is a shift going on right now in the Libertarian Party. And I look at it as a changing of the guard. And it doesn't have to, it is not what it's described as by many people on social media, but there is a changing of the guard happening right now in the Libertarian Party. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a necessary thing. Given the backdrop of the opportunity that I was just talking about, if we have this opportunity, we need to get our act together. A lot of people, you know, accuse the Mises Caucus of being a lot of different things. And I'm a member of the Mises Caucus and an enthusiastic member. That is my caucus, and I love those guys. But before I'm a member of the Mises Caucus, I'm a member of the Libertarian Party. And before I'm a member of the Libertarian Party, I'm a libertarian. Look, I don't have blind caucus loyalty, and I don't have blind party loyalty. I believe in human liberty, period. That's what I care about. And if the party is a good vehicle to that, then let's use the party. And if the caucus is a good vehicle to that, then let's use the caucus. But if it's not, then forget all of it, because the primary goal is human liberty. Is that? Oh. It's the CIA. They're coming to get me. I think that, you know, there's been a lot of things that are described, like people will say, this is what the Mises Caucus represents, or this is what they're doing, and some of them are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, some of them, like, just flat out don't even make sense at all. Like, they'll say, I heard people say, we're secretly working for the Republicans, which is why we're trying to make the LP more right-wing, which, if you think about it, would be like a really dumb plan. Like, if you were working for the Republicans, you wouldn't try to make the LP more right-wing because that might peel off votes from the Republicans. If you were working for the Republicans, you'd probably try to say things like, we support Black Lives Matter. Like, that would be what you'd want to say if you were trying to help the Republicans. I'm not even making a comment on the statement. I'm just saying objectively, if you were trying to help the Republicans, you would make the LP like a haven of woke progressive nonsense. Because that's what would drive all of the votes to the Republican Party. The truth is that when they say that the Mises Caucus represents a Republican infiltration of the Libertarian Party, I mean, the tiny bit of truth to that would be that some of us were Republicans before we came here. But let me tell you something, I registered as a Republican for one reason and one reason only, and that was to vote for Dr. Ron Paul. There was no other reason. I registered to vote for Ron Paul as a rejection of the Republican establishment. And then many of us stuck around in 2016 because we had hopes for Rand Paul. And when Rand Paul fell flat on his face and Donald Trump won, that's when we all migrated over here to the Libertarian Party because we decided that the populist, Trumpist Republican Party was no home for us. So how does this narrative make any sense? That a populist, right-wing, paleo-conservative movement would have abandoned the Republican Party when they won the Republican Party? Anyway, all of this stuff just makes no sense on its face. But this is to me what the Mises Caucus represents, okay? Given that trust has evaporated in the establishments, and given everything we're up against, which is no joke, we are up against the sweeping rise of a totalitarian movement across Western civilization. Just last month, in that far-off, backward third world country known as Canada, we saw a working class liberty movement squashed by an authoritarian government invoking unprecedented emergency powers. I mean, zoom out and think about that. We know a little something about the history of government authoritarianism. This is no joke. They also, by the way, invoked these financial powers where they were just seizing bank accounts with zero due process. Just, you were involved in the protest, says the government. Was that person involved in the protest? Who knows? Good luck proving you weren't. But that's what they did. By the way, at the request of the president, Joe Biden. That's what the Canadian government did. So the point is, given the opportunity that we have, given what we're up against, there's a very important question that the Libertarian Party needs to grapple with. And this question is, when we have this opportunity, when we can be heard by more people than we've ever been heard from before, and when we know what we're up against, what do we want to say? What do we want to say in that moment? That's what all of us should be focused on. And what the Mises Caucus represents is a view on that particular question. And what we believe is that in that moment, when all of the trust in the corporate press has evaporated, maybe it's not the best idea to sound just like the corporate press. Maybe we don't need to bend over backward to make sure that they won't call us all of the mean names that we don't want to get called, even though we know it's a guarantee that if we're ever successful, they're going to call us every one of those names anyway. What exactly? What are we running from? If we're really scared of being demonized by the corporate press, then honestly, we should just give up now. Because if we're ever anywhere close to success, it's a guarantee that we'll be demonized by them. Think about Tulsi Gabbard, who was an active duty military member, okay, at the time, who served in technically maybe not a combat vet. I don't know if they consider that combat vet, but she was embedded in a medical unit in Iraq during the worst of the fighting in Iraq. She firsthand witnessed the brutality of war, the true price of the war in Iraq. She volunteered and enlisted to go fight in the war in Iraq. And she then turned around and opposed it. And for that, she was called a Russian asset by Hillary Clinton, the woman who voted and sent her there. So I think about that. Or if we're afraid of being demonized, this active duty military member was demonized by them. And she's progressive on every other issue. She was just like, hey, I'm progressive just like you guys, but I don't want to fight wars as much. And they were like, spoken like a true Russian, you know? Like, but the way you're laughing at it, everyone's laughing at it now. They've overplayed their hand. No one believes Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian agent. No one believes Joe Rogan is racist. No one believes any of this stuff. It's just a tactic, and they've gone to the well way too many times. No one believes it anymore. So the thing is this, right? The Mises Caucus was the reason they kind of got started and picked up all of this steam is because they were furious with the messaging that was coming out of the Libertarian Party. And we all saw the golden opportunity that we had in 2016 when you had the least, the most unliked candidates in modern American history, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and then you have this other party that has the name Libertarian, that carries the tradition of Ron Paul and Harry Browne. And what did they use that opportunity to say? Well, Donald Trump's a huckster and Hillary Clinton's a good kid. That was their message. Well, we kind of want to legalize weed, but not really heroin, and, you know, we kind of want to get back to the what did bake the cake and all this stuff. And it's like, so that's your moment? That's the moment that you took, the opportunity you used? So we were upset about that. We felt that there was a better way that we could do things. We watched through 2020 as the Libertarian Party was silent on the most totalitarian the rise of the lockdowns, one of the worst crimes ever perpetrated by the government on its people. That was a moment for libertarians to lead. And going forward, we need to take these moments and we need to speak up about them when they're happening, when they matter the most. That's how we become the leaders of this conversation. It's about saying things when they matter. The greatest piece of libertarian writing in the history of libertarianism was Harry Browne's piece, When Will We Learn? Have you guys read that? It's Harry Browne's piece. It's called When Will We Learn? And it was written on September 12th, 2001, the day after 9/11. The day after 9/11, Harry Browne wrote a brilliant piece. And as I said, how will we learn? When will we learn? And he said, when will we learn that we can't just bomb countries and indiscriminately kill innocent civilians without drumming up hatred for us? He had the courage to say that on September 12th of 2001. So we don't, represent a rejection of the tradition of the Libertarian Party. We're trying to get back to the best of the tradition of the Libertarian Party, not being silent, not avoiding saying something when it's the most difficult to say it. Let's get back to that. That's what the American people are looking for. The people crave authenticity and the truth. And even if it's difficult in that moment, you reap the dividends. It pays dividends later. People look back and go, wow, that guy really got it right from the very beginning. Right now, everybody knows that lockdowns were a mistake. And you would have it really helps you. I know people just in the podcasting world, those of us who were against the lockdowns from day one have all seen a huge benefit from that, because now everyone goes, oh, you know what, you guys were right about that. Even the people who were proponents of the lockdowns have realized that. If there's an issue of freedom that other people are waking up to later, why the hell shouldn't the Libertarian Party be leading the charge on that from day one? And I think right now we have another moment where we can talk about this stuff. And that's what's going on with these tensions with the war in Ukraine. Joe Biden said in his State of the Union that Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine was, quote, unprovoked. Now, I will say I think his invasion of Ukraine is horrific and it's inexcusable. and innocent people have died, and that's horrible anytime innocent people die. But it is just not true that it was unprovoked. It's just not true. 30 years of NATO expansions. We used to draw the line right down the center of Germany. And the promise was NATO won't move 1 inch to the east. You know, a few years ago, Hillary Clinton said that Vladimir Putin has moved his military right up to NATO's doorstep. She meant Russia's border. Because that's NATO's doorstep now. Now, I'm sorry, but if the Cuban Missile Crisis, if we're going to say that if the Soviets sent nuclear weapons into Cuba, we all agree that that was a clear provocation of the United States of America. Well, what the hell do you think putting dual-use rocket launchers in Poland is? Is that not a provocation of Vladimir Putin? Is it not a provocation to lead a coup in Ukraine in 2014, funding real-deal neo-Nazis to send in weapons year after year after year to their bordering country? Now, of course, I've been met, what's the response if you bring this up? Oh, you know, Russian talking points or something like that, or you're apologizing for Vladimir Putin. But I'm not apologizing for Vladimir Putin any more than Harry Brown was apologizing for Al-Qaeda. It's just that if there's a role for libertarians, it's to tell the damn truth. That's what we're here to do. There's I know that there's been like a big shakeup in this party, even over just like the last few weeks, and I think we're going to have another big shakeup in Reno in a couple months, and I'm pretty excited for that. But I'll tell you right now that if we really want to make the most of this libertarian moment that we could have, and if the LP wants to really do everything that it can do right now to wake up the American people, to create a huge mass movement of libertarians, which is more possible than ever before in my lifetime, then we need this shakeup in Reno. It can't come fast enough. We're going to put Karen Ann Harlos right back in that job that they took from her and let them know. Let them know. And we're gonna make Angela McArdle the next chair of the LNC. The absolute best person we could have for that job, man. I'm so excited that she's doing this. And this is gonna change a lot of things about the culture of the Libertarian Party. And that's necessary. We need a change in the culture of this party. Now, we can sit here and we can feel great about the tradition of ideas that we have, and we should. But the truth is that when it comes to it, the Libertarian Party sits atop the most beautiful political philosophy ever devised by man. We've been around for 50 years, and we're largely viewed as a joke. And that's a problem. And that shit's going to change. And it's going to start in Reno. So get ready for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of other crises that are facing the American people, and I would just say that that's what we need to do as a party. We need to be focused not just on our own ideology, not just on our own worldview and our own internal political disputes, but we really need to be focused on the crises facing the American people, and we can make a lot of noise. And I think this is going to happen after we have this big shakeup in Reno. But I do want to just say that for all of the internal struggles that will lead up to that, I think that after Reno, I think there is going to be a reset, a great reset, if you will. But I think there's going to be a reset, and it's going to be an opportunity for us to stop a lot of this infighting. I think that there are certain toxic elements in this party who are probably going to walk away after Reno. But I don't think it's going to be that many of them. And honestly, I think that's fine. They can go, they can regroup, and then they can decide if they want to be a part of the biggest liberty movement in our country's history, which is what we're getting ready to lead, okay? But after all of this is said and done, I hope it is known, and I say this as a member of the Mises Caucus, not that I have any official position, but a fairly influential member of the Mises Caucus. I am not interested in continuing these liberty wars any further. I think that right now, with what we're up against and the opportunity that we have, we should all come together and unite around the policies that we agree on. That's what I think the vision for all of us should be. And I think that as long as there are some basic ground rules of don't call people racist Nazis, we can discuss our differences, but it should be like this. We come together over the issues that we believe in. And this is basically it, okay? If you are against the entire COVID regime, all of the mandates, all of the lockdowns, all of the passports, all of it. If you're against the entire warfare state, all of it, every single one of these military conflicts, if you want to end, audit, destroy the Federal Reserve, if you want to end the cronyism in this country, if you want to end the police state and the war on drugs, that's enough. That's enough. You are one of us, whether you like it or not. Imagine agreeing on all of that and then still getting bogged down in some other disagreement that you have. And it's very ridiculous because libertarians, we do this to each other and we don't do this to anyone else. We love left-wingers when they're good on one issue. You know, if there was one left-winger out there and they're like, oh, I really don't like vaccine mandates, you're like, thank you. That is so awesome. But you're a left-winger and you're not for the vaccine mandates. That is so fun. You're my hero. And they could be awful on everything else. But they're good on that one thing. And I'm like, let me share that guy's article because that guy's awesome. And if there was imagine if just think of the most populist right-winger you could think of, who's just the worst on everything, everything bad that a populist right-winger could be bad on. They're we need a tariff trade war, or we got to be hawkish on China, whatever their issues that they're terrible on. And then they were given a speech, and then at one point they went, and also we should end the Federal Reserve. You'd be like, I fucking love this guy. That is so awesome that he added that to the list. Yet here we are, libertarians, will agree on that entire list. And then, we'll be like, well, yeah, but we don't, we disagree on this one little issue here, and we'll spend all day on that. This stuff is stupid, and it's counterproductive, and we should all get past it. If we're going to lead the liberty movement, if we're going to create a huge moment in American history that is something that our kids and grandkids can be proud of, which is what we have the opportunity to do, then we got to get past all this stuff. And we got to start coming together. And so that's my message everywhere I go across the country. And just like you guys all gave it a big round of applause, guess what? Everywhere across the country, this gets a big round of applause in the rooms that I'm in. Libertarians do not hate each other. They don't. I don't care what you see on Twitter. We all love each other. We all believe in human liberty. And we're all in this fight together. And that's final, because I said so. So that's... And it's been a great experience. It's been a great experience going around the country. And I would say that, for people who are still caught up in the sectarian, libertarian fighting, and I know that even when I say it like this, when I say, look, we agree on all of this stuff, we should come together and work together, it's a little bit easier in the abstract, because when it gets down to actual things, you're like, yeah, but this person did the wrong thing to me, and we don't like that person because they did something really wrong, and everyone's got their own little, interpersonal thing, and I get that. And you're not necessarily wrong. You might be right, and what that person did was completely out of line. I'm just saying that we all have to keep our eye on what the mission here is. And the mission is nothing short of revolution. And if we're going to do that, then some of these things, they just have to be kept in perspective. So I'll even understand where I'll talk to people sometimes, at these different Libertarian Party conventions around the country, and sometimes they have a beef with the Mises Caucus. And I know that this is, obviously, the Mises Caucus is a large percentage of people in this room. I saw the numbers from earlier. It does seem like our presence has been felt here. And they'll be like, well, this guy did this, or we don't like this change that they made to the platform or the bylaw or something like that, and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. I don't know every little disagreement. But I'm just saying, if you look at the bigger picture, I don't understand how anybody who cares about this party could not want the energy that the Mises Caucus is bringing into this party right now. I mean, how could you not want this? How could you not want this to be a part of your movement? Look, I told you, I went to California, and at that convention, they said it was the best turnout they've ever seen. When I went to Arizona, they said at that convention it was the best turnout they've ever seen. When I went to Florida, they said it was the best turnout they've ever seen. And just the other day at Pennsylvania, by far, the best turnout they've ever seen. Of course, here in Colorado, best turnout you guys have ever seen. Every single one of those states, the Mises Caucus ended up winning the entire state party. Because that's who's leading the energy for these record high turnouts. But the point is this, we're not here to kick any good libertarians out of the party. We recognize that it's not just going to be us in the party. We just don't want to be called freaking Nazis. That's it. It's very hard to work with someone who calls you a Nazi, especially if you're like me and you're Jewish. And I'm like, I'm really not, I'm really not. In fact, half my family was killed by them, so I'm not really trying to join their thing. And I don't know if you're familiar with Nazis, but they wouldn't be too happy to have me in their party. They're not so into the whole thing. But I remember, because I came into libertarianism from the Ron Paul campaigns, and I remember back in 2008, no one, at least what I was a part of, the thing was never about how libertarians hated each other. It was all about how we loved each other. And we agreed about all of these important issues. And I think part of that is because we had a guy up there giving our message. And so my vision for the future of the Libertarian Party is that after Reno, I think that's the attitude that we should have. That it's like, look, we can have one or two disagreements on the side here, but when it comes to it, we're not here to take on each other, we're here to take on the state. And so we should all be together like, yes, that's our message. That's our message out there, and we should all be picking each other up. So I'd encourage you guys now, like the Mises Caucus obviously has a lot of the positions here, all of the positions here in Colorado. Be kind and respectful to all the other people outside of the Mises Caucus here. Lift them up and let them know that we love them too. That we're all brothers and sisters in arms. This is a healthy competition about competing visions about the future of the Libertarian Party, but this isn't a war. We're not at war with each other, but we are at war with the state. And the state declared that war against us first. Now, when war is declared against you and you're in a fight, you don't really have time to sit around and talk to the guy next to you about whether or not you like his freaking outfit or something, you know? So that's what we got to do. I would say going forward, as a libertarian, what you should focus on, first and foremost, be a good person. Be a good person to all the people around you in your life. First and foremost, your family, your friends. Be a good person to all the other libertarians that you come in contact with. And then when it comes to this political stuff, you always tell the truth. And if you could find something that's the most uncomfortable truth to tell, that you feel kind of like, ugh, I don't even know if I should say that, that's the one you lead with. You lead with that first. That type of energy, that's how we create a real movement in this country. That's how we create a revolution. And I'm really honored to be in this struggle with all of you guys here. And so I'll wrap on that. Thank you guys so much for the time. Thank you for everything.